Lily Harper is many things: chronically broke, perpetually sleep-deprived, and deeply, humiliatingly obsessed with the Callum and Clara romance series, a 6-book phenomenon that has sent millions of readers into emotional tailspins and sold out bookstores worldwide. The mysterious author, Vivienne Ashford, is basically a ghost. No social media, no interviews, no public appearances. Just devastating prose and Welcome to Flustered novel, where love is chaotic, confessions are awkward, and every story comes with butterflies, drama, and a little emotional damage. Grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's romance story. There are 2 types of people in this world: those who read the Callum and Clara series and emerged relatively functional, and those who read it and had to take a personal day. I am the second type. I've read all 6 books. Twice. The 4th one, The Space Between Sentences, I've read 4 times, which is either a testament to Vivienne Ashford's genius or evidence that I need a therapist. Possibly both. I have opinions about Callum's character arc that I've written out in a Google Doc I will take to my grave. I cried at the ending of Book 6 in a campus library, and told the girl next to me I was having an allergic. So yes, I'm a fan. But I'm also a very broke 3rd-year literature student with £17 in my bank account and a flatmate I barely know, which is why I'm currently standing in our tiny kitchen, in my socks at 7 a.m., squinting at an open laptop that someone, Nora, has left charging on the counter. I'm only looking for the Wi-Fi password, which she never writes down and I never remember, and which is an ongoing source of mild tension between us. But instead of a sticky note with password credentials, what I find is a Word document. Open. Full screen. And at the top, in plain 12-point Times New Roman, are the words. Untitled, Callum and Clara Book 7 Draft 1, Vivienne Ashford. I stop. I read it again. I look around the kitchen, as though expecting a camera crew to leap out from behind the refrigerator. The kitchen is empty. The refrigerator is silent. The laptop continues glowing. I pick up my phone. I Google Vivienne Ashford real name. I get, as always, absolutely nothing: a Wikipedia page with a stock photo silhouette and a publisher's P.O. box in Edinburgh. I Google Nora Callaway author. Also nothing. I Google Vivienne Ashford Callum inspiration, and land on a fan forum where someone has theorized at length that Callum is based on a real person, which the fandom has mostly dismissed as delusion. The fandom, I now understand, was wrong. I close the browser. I sit down on the kitchen floor, because my legs have stopped working. Nora, my roommate Nora, who drinks chamomile tea and apologizes to furniture when she bumps into it and once spent 40 minutes deciding which library book to return first, is the most beloved romance author of our generation. And I have been leaving passive-aggressive notes about the Wi-Fi password on her door. I put my face in my hands. Book 7, I think, is going to be excellent. I sat on that kitchen floor for 6 minutes, which I know because I watched the microwave clock tick through them while doing absolutely nothing useful with my brain. Then I stood up, made myself a coffee I couldn't afford to make. We were on the emergency Nescafe at this point in the month, and did what any reasonable person would do upon discovering their flatmate was secretly the most famous anonymous author on the internet. I read 17 pages of the draft. Look, I'm not proud of it. But I'm also not going to pretend I have the kind of self-control that allows a person to simply close a document titled Callum and Clara Book 7 and go about her morning. I am human. I am weak. And Vivienne Ashford's prose style is like literary morphine. The moment it's in your bloodstream, you are not operating heavy machinery or making responsible decisions. I stopped at page 17 only because I heard Nora's bedroom door creak. I leapt approximately 2 feet, slammed the laptop shut, and spun around to face the kettle with the energy of someone who had absolutely not been reading a stolen manuscript. Nora shuffled in wearing a lumpy green dressing gown and the expression of a woman who had been awake for 30 seconds and already had complicated feelings about it. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I said, to the kettle. She glanced at the counter. At her laptop. Back at me. "Did you move my computer?" No, I said, at the exact pitch of someone who had moved her computer. Nora blinked. She was quiet for a moment, the particular quiet I'd come to recognize as Nora processing something, which she did slowly and with great thoroughness, like a government form. Right, she said finally, and reached past me to put the kettle on. I exhaled through my nose. I held my coffee cup. I stared straight ahead. This was fine. Everything was fine. I had read 17 pages of an unpublished manuscript by the ghost author of the most popular romance series in the English-speaking world, and had said absolutely nothing. I was composed. I was neutral. I was a woman who contained multitudes and had excellent boundaries. Are you all right? Nora asked. You look like you're about to cry. Allergies, I said. I'm developing allergies. She offered me an antihistamine from a drawer and went back to her room, and I stood at the counter and drank my Nescafé, and thought very carefully about what I was going to do next. What I decided was, nothing. I would do nothing. I would say nothing. I would respect Nora's privacy and her anonymity and her creative process, and I would be a mature adult woman about the whole thing. I lasted 48 hours. To be fair, it was the forum post that broke me. I'd been lurking, only lurking, in the main Callum and Clara fan community when someone posted a Chapter 47 reread thread, and in the comments, the user named at Callum_deserved_more wrote a 2,000-word analysis of Callum's relationship with silence, concluding that whoever inspired this man must be real and must be somewhere, and I need the universe to confirm this. I put my phone down. I picked my phone back up. I knocked on Nora's door. She opened it looking mildly alarmed, which was, I'd learned, her default expression when interrupted before 6 p.m. I know, I said. I'm so sorry. I wasn't snooping. Well, I was, but it was an accident and I only read 17 pages, and I haven't told anyone, and I never will, I promise, but Nora, I exhaled. You're Vivienne Ashford. There was a very long pause. Yes, said Nora. Book 7 is going to be incredible, I said, because that felt important to establish immediately. Another pause. And then, very slowly, Nora's expression shifted into something I hadn't seen from her before, relief. Like she'd been holding something heavy for a long time and had just, cautiously, set it down. Come in, she said. I'll make the good tea. In the 2 weeks following my discovery, Nora and I had what she called a renegotiation of the flatmate dynamic, and what I called the best fortnight of my life. She didn't want me to treat her differently, which I respected. She swore me to secrecy with the intensity of a woman who had a lot to lose, which I understood. She also, at my barely concealed begging, let me read the first 3 chapters of Book 7 properly, sitting at the kitchen table while she marked them up beside me, occasionally muttering things like, that sentence is too long, and Callum wouldn't say it like that. How would he say it? I asked. More quietly, she said. He always goes quiet before he says something that matters. I made a noise that I would describe as involuntary. Nora gave me a look. You're going to be difficult about this, aren't you? I'm not being difficult. I'm appreciating the craft. You made that sound when Callum opened the door in Chapter 22. That was different. You were alone in your room. And yet somehow you heard it. She sighed the sigh of a woman who had made a significant miscalculation in a flatmate. It was Thursday, which I mention only because of what happened on Thursday evening, which was that Nora, very casually, over pasta, said, my brother's coming to stay this weekend. He's passing through the city. Oh, I said. He'll sleep on the sofa. He won't be any trouble. Sure, I said. His name's Ethan, she said, and looked at her pasta with suspicious focus. I put down my fork. Ethan. Callum's name, in every dedication, every acknowledgement, every carefully buried detail I'd catalogued like a literary archaeologist, was E. Every fan theory about the real inspiration for Callum pointed to a real person close to the author. Someone private. Nora, I said very slowly. Is Ethan? Yes, she said, still looking at her pasta. He's Callum. He's my brother, she corrected. Callum is fictional. Nora. He has the same, she waved a hand, general quality. The same way of being in a room. I've known him my whole life, so he was reference material. Loosely. You gave Callum that thing he does with his jaw. You described it in book 2. 17 times. Nora finally looked up. Her expression was that of a person who had been caught. He arrived Saturday, she said. Please be normal. I was not normal. He arrived at 2:30 on Saturday, and I know the exact time, because I was sitting on the sofa pretending to read when the knock came, and I checked my phone and then had to put it down because my hands were doing something embarrassing. Nora let him in. He was tall, of course he was tall. Nora had described the height in obsessive detail across 6 novels, with dark hair and the kind of face that made you want to write something about it, which, now that I thought about it, was exactly what his sister had done. He set down a bag. He looked around the flat. His eyes landed on me. Hi, he said. I'm Ethan. Lily, I said, like a person with a functioning brain. He smiled. It was a slow smile, the kind that arrived incrementally, like it was deciding whether to commit. Nora, behind him, caught my eye with an expression that said, "Be normal, I'm begging you." I looked back at Ethan. Do you want tea? I asked. Please, he said. And that was how I met the man my roommate had been writing about for 6 years, who was standing in my kitchen in a grey jumper, and who had absolutely no idea that I knew more about his fictional counterpart than I knew about most of my actual friends. Here is a list of things I knew about Callum from 6 books of close reading. He was quiet in crowds and loud only in private. He remembered everything people told him, even things they'd said in passing, and brought them up later with such exactness that it felt like being caught. He was bad at asking for help. He made coffee too strong and never apologized for it. He deflected with humor when he was nervous and went completely still when he was moved by something. Here is the problem with knowing all of that. Ethan Callaway did all of it. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way that would mean anything to a person who hadn't read 6 novels and a 17-page draft on a stolen laptop. But I noticed. When he made coffee on Sunday morning and handed me a cup without asking how I took it, black, too strong, and when I grimaced he said, "You can water it down if you want," with the exact flat delivery Nora gave Callum in Chapter 9. I noticed when I mentioned offhandedly that I'd failed to get a placement I'd applied for, and he looked at me, a proper, full look, and said, "That's their loss, not yours," not as a platitude, but as a statement of fact. I also noticed when I laughed too loudly at something and he turned from where he was standing by the window and watched me for just a second longer than necessary, and then turned back. I was noticing too many things. "You're staring," Nora said, in a low voice, when Ethan had gone to the corner shop. "I'm observing," I said. "I'm a literature student." "You're being a literary stalker." He said the coffee thing. Nora. He said the exact coffee thing. She looked momentarily proud, then caught herself. "He's just a person, Lily." He handed me a black coffee, and didn't flinch when I made a face. That's called being annoying, not romantic. In Book 4. Do not quote my own books at me. I closed my mouth. The trouble was that Ethan himself wasn't helping. He wasn't flirting. I was clear-eyed enough to register that. He was simply attentive. He listened properly, which is rarer than it should be. He asked follow-up questions. When I mentioned I was working on my dissertation, he asked what it was on, and when I said unreliable narrators in mid-century fiction, he said, "So you like being lied to, elegant?" On Sunday evening, Nora disappeared into her room under the guise of editing, I noted, that conveniently began 30 seconds after Ethan and I had settled on opposite ends of the sofa with our respective reading materials. I opened my book. He opened his. We sat in silence for 20 minutes. It was not uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that has weight to it, that you become aware of in stages. What are you reading? He asked eventually. I showed him the cover. Any good? Unreliable narrator, I said. So it's hard to tell. He almost smiled. That's either a very good answer, or a very evasive one. Probably both, I said. He went back to his book. I went back to mine. My heart was doing something completely unprofessional. Ethan was supposed to leave Monday morning. He did not leave Monday morning, because his train was cancelled, which I'm choosing to believe was the universe, and not the rail network, and which resulted in him being stranded in our flat for an additional day. Nora, who had a video call she couldn't move, suggested I show him around a bit, with an expression on her face that I was too frazzled to decode properly at the time. I decoded it later. Much later. As deliberate. I don't need a tour, Ethan said. I've been to cities before. Great, I said. Then we can go somewhere interesting instead of somewhere obligatory. We ended up at Hartley's, a second-hand bookshop about 15 minutes walk from the flat, the kind with narrow corridors and section labels that are purely aspirational, and a cat that lives under the classics shelf and judges everyone who picks up a Hemingway. Ethan was immediately at home in a way that did absolutely nothing to help my situation. He moved through the stacks the way some people move through parties, unhurried, pausing at the things that interested him, ignoring everything else. He pulled out a battered copy of something, read the first page, put it back. Pulled out another. Do you always do that? I asked. Do what? Judge a book on the first page. If it can't earn me on the first page, he said, it probably won't earn me at all. I thought about how Nora had written, in book 1, that Callum chose people the same way, entirely, or not at all. I picked up a nearby book and stared at it very hard. And then I saw it. On the shelf at the end of the row, spine facing out, the familiar burgundy cover of Between Every Line, book 3 of Callum and Clara, the one with the dedication. I stared at it. Ethan appeared beside me. He looked at the shelf. His expression did something complicated. Good series, I said, because my mouth is not always my friend. So I'm told, he said, very carefully. I looked at him. You've read them. He paused. Read some of them. Which ones? He picked up a completely unrelated novel from the adjacent shelf. The third one. The third one. The one with the dedication that read, For E, who never asks for anything and always deserves more. I did the maths. The maths were shattering. Nora's very talented, I said, neutrally. She is, he said, and there was something in his voice that was fond and complicated and private, the way things are when they belong to a relationship older than either person's ability to articulate it. We walked home. He bought 2 books. Neither of them were Nora's. I decided this was the most romantic thing I had ever personally witnessed, and that I needed to get a grip immediately. Ethan left Tuesday at noon, and I spent the subsequent 48 hours in a state I can only describe as mildly haunted. I went to lectures. I read 2 articles for my dissertation. I ate a meal I didn't taste. I checked the Callum and Clara fan forum and found a new post theorizing that Vivienne Ashford was actually a team of writers, which was so wrong I wanted to respond personally on Nora's behalf. I did not. I have some self-control. On Thursday, Nora knocked on my door at 9 p.m. with 2 mugs of tea and an expression I'd learned to identify as, I'm doing something and I need you to not make it weird. She sat on the end of my bed. She handed me a mug. He asked about you, she said. I put the mug down very slowly. What? Ethan. He texted me on Tuesday. The room did something spatial. He didn't, I said. He did. Nora. I know. What did you tell him? That you were single and emotionally available, but deeply in denial about it. You didn't. I said you were single, she corrected. The rest I implied. I picked the mug back up. I needed something to do with my hands. He's going to think I put you up to this. I put myself up to this, she said, with great serenity. I am the author. I know how this goes. This isn't one of your books. No, she said. But I've been writing about the version of him that exists in my head for 6 years, and the version sitting in our living room is better, and you looked at him the way Clara looks at Callum in the train scene in book 4. She paused. Which I wrote. So I know what it means. I opened my mouth. I closed it. He's coming back, she said. In 3 weeks. He wants to visit again. He was just here. Yes. She sipped her tea. And he's coming back. I sat with that. Outside, it was raining the way it does in early autumn, purposefully, without apology. I'm not Clara, I said, eventually. Obviously not, said Nora. You're louder and you make worse tea. But you do the same thing she does when you're trying not to show that something matters to you. You get very precise. Very controlled. She looked at me. You've been very controlled since Tuesday. I had nothing to say to that, because she was right, and because it was alarming to be understood this clearly by a woman who made her living understanding people. He's going to be in town for a conference, she continued, gathering herself to leave. I thought it might be nice if we all got dinner. Nora. I'm not interfering, she said, standing. I'm creating optimal conditions. That's what interfering is. Good night, Lily. She closed the door behind her. I lay back on my bed and looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then I texted my best friend. I am becoming a character in a romance novel, and I'm not emotionally prepared. She replied, LOL same. What's for dinner? I turned off my light. The dinner was at a small Italian place 15 minutes from the flat. The kind of restaurant with no written menu and a host who seemed to be making it up as he went, which I would normally find charming and tonight found acutely nerve-wracking. Nora sat between us for approximately 9 minutes before claiming she needed the bathroom, sliding out of the booth, and texting me from the toilets. I'm getting a taxi home. You're welcome. The pasta here is excellent. Don't overthink it. I stared at my phone. She's not coming back, is she? Ethan said. Apparently not. He didn't look surprised. He looked, if anything, like he'd accounted for this possibility. We ordered wine. We ordered the pasta Nora had recommended via text. We talked, properly talked, the way we hadn't quite managed when he was staying at the flat, because then there had been Nora as social scaffolding and now there was just the two of us and a candle and a basket of bread. He talked about his work, structural engineering, which should have been dry and was somehow not, because of the way he talked about buildings as things that were trusted with people. It matters that they hold, he said. Not just physically. People put their ordinary life inside a building. It should be worth that. I told him about my dissertation. He asked questions. Good questions, the kind that required me to actually think rather than perform thinking. You love it, he said, at one point. The dissertation. Literature. You love it the way some people love, he considered. The way some people love things that have saved them somehow. I set down my fork. It did, I said. Books saved me. When I was about 14 and everything was quite bad for a while. I read myself through it. He nodded. Not with surprise. With recognition. Nora did the same, he said quietly. Wrote herself through it. Instead of reading. I thought about 6 novels. About a character built from someone she loved and something she needed. She's extraordinary, I said. Yes, he said. And then, so are you, I think. I've been thinking about it since I left. The candle flickered. I looked at him. You've been thinking about me. I said, because apparently I was going to say that out loud. Is that strange? He asked. No, I said. I stopped. Started again. I've been thinking about you too. He held my gaze for a moment. That slow smile arrived. Incremental. Deciding. Good, he said. And then we went back to eating pasta, as though the world had not just tilted slightly on its axis, as though I wasn't sitting across from the man his sister had been writing about for 6 years and thinking, with absolute, helpless clarity. I understand now. I understand every single word. 3 days after the dinner, 3 days during which Ethan and I had texted with the frequency of people trying very hard to be casual about texting, the internet found Nora. Not all of Nora. Not her name. But a photo. Someone had posted a bookshop event Nora had attended 6 months ago, tagging the venue, and in the background, barely visible, was Nora, and someone in the comments had said, "Wait, is that Vivienne Ashford?" with enough conviction to launch a 48-hour spiral of fan speculation. I found out when my fan forum app sent me a push notification at 7 a.m, breaking. Is this Vivienne Ashford? I ran to Nora's room in my socks. She was already awake. Already online. Already pale. It might not go anywhere, I said. It's already been shared 12,000 times, she said. Her voice was very calm in the way that meant the opposite. I sat on the edge of her desk chair. The picture wasn't conclusive, you couldn't see her face clearly. But the fandom, which was enormous and enthusiastic, and had nothing but time and image enhancement apps, was working on it. What do you want to do? I asked. Nothing, she said. There's nothing to do yet. We could. Lily. She looked at me. I've been anonymous for 6 years. My readers don't need me to be real. The books are real. That's enough. I know, I said. But if they find out? If they find out, they find out. She closed her laptop. What I don't want is for it to be ugly. For Ethan to be dragged into it. His private. He'd hate it. I thought about that. I thought about the dedication in book 3. I thought about how Ethan had said Nora did the same, with a quietness that suggested he'd watched it happen and understood it, and had never asked her to explain. Does he know? I asked. That Callum is based on him. Nora said. Not explicitly. I've never said it. He's read book 3. He's not an idiot. She paused. We don't talk about it. It's one of our arrangements. I understood. Some things between siblings exist in a space that doesn't require words, because the words would change the shape of the thing. I'll check the forum again, I said. I'll tell you if it escalates. You don't have to. Nora, I said. You let me read book 7. Chapter 3 has a scene that undid me completely. We are well past the point where I would not monitor an internet forum for you. She almost smiled. I'm going to call Ethan, she said. To warn him. Just in case. Okay, I said. I went back to my room. I sat on my bed. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Nora just called. Are you all right? I stared at the screen. He'd called her, presumably, to check on her. And then texted me. To check on me. Fine, I wrote back. Just worried about her. Me too, he replied. I'm driving up on Friday. I put the phone down and pressed both hands over my face. It was at this precise moment that I understood I was not heading toward something. I was already in it. I had arrived, without noticing, at the feeling I'd been trying to keep at arm's length for 3 weeks, which was the particular feeling of caring very much what happens to another person, and being helpless about it. I sent Nora a text, he's coming Friday. She replied, I know. I asked him to. I sent back, you're unbelievable. She sent a chamomile tea emoji. The photo story died on its own. The image wasn't clear enough, the comments grew inconclusive, and a celebrity did something more interesting on Thursday morning that successfully redirected the internet's attention elsewhere. Nora exhaled for the first time in 4 days. Ethan arrived Friday evening anyway, because he'd already made the drive and also, I suspected, because he'd already decided to. I made dinner, a real dinner, not Nescafe, or toast or the sad pasta I usually made when money was tight. I'd found a recipe online, and bought the ingredients with money I'd been saving for something responsible, which I decided this counted as. Nora took one look at the kitchen, said I'm going to Sophie's, and left before either of us could say anything. Ethan stood in the doorway to the kitchen and looked at the situation, the chopping board, the recipe on my phone, the fact that I was clearly nervous, and said nothing for a moment. You cooked, he said. I'm cooking, I corrected. It's ongoing. There have been some setbacks with the garlic. He took off his jacket. Can I help? You can stir the sauce, I said. Without judgment. He took the spoon. He stirred. He did not judge. We cooked side by side in a kitchen that was too small for the purpose, which meant we kept having to navigate around each other, the fridge, the hob, the drawer with the good spoons, and after the third time we reached for something simultaneously, he didn't move his hand and neither did I. We looked at each other. Lily, he said. The way he said it, precise, decided, like it was the conclusion of something, made my chest do something structural. I know, I said. I should probably say it. You probably should. I've thought about you every day since I left, he said. Which is not something I do. I don't usually, he stopped. Started again. I came back because I wanted to see you. Not because Nora asked, though she did ask. But because I wanted to. I set down the wooden spoon. I've been trying very hard, I said, not to make it weird. Because you're Nora's brother and Nora is my flatmate, and there are about 9 different reasons why this could become complicated. It's already complicated, he said. I know. Does that bother you? I thought about it, actually thought, instead of deflecting. No, I said. Not really. He smiled. The full version this time, not incremental, not deciding. Just present. He reached past me to turn the sauce down a notch, because it had begun to bubble in a way that suggested catastrophe, and then he was close, and it was very easy, and I kissed him, or he kissed me, or we arrived at the same place simultaneously, which is, I think, the better story. The sauce survived. Dinner was good. Nora came home at 10, looked at the two of us sitting on the sofa with the unambiguous body language of people who have sorted something out, and went directly to her room, where I heard, very distinctly, a triumphant noise. She's writing this down, Ethan said. Obviously, I said. Should we be concerned? I looked at the closed door of the woman who had written 6 novels about her brother's emotional landscape, and was now witnessing the inciting incident of whatever came next. For what it's worth, I said, she writes happy endings. He put his arm around me. Good, he said. 6 months later, Nora published Book 7. She did not tell me in advance what she'd put in it. I found out the same way everyone else did, on the Tuesday it released, sitting in the campus library with my headphones in, turning to chapter 31. In chapter 31, there is a new character. She appears for only 4 pages. She is Clara's flatmate, sharp, loyal, always makes tea badly, and says exactly the wrong thing at exactly the right moment. She has a name. The name is Lily. I put the book down on the library table. I sat very still. I opened my phone and texted Nora, chapter 31. She replied immediately, which meant she'd been waiting, don't make it weird. I texted, you gave me a cameo. She replied, I gave you a supporting role. There's a difference. She appears again in the epilogue. I flipped to the epilogue. In the epilogue, fictional Lily is a bridesmaid at Clara and Callum's wedding. She is described, in one sentence, as the first person who ever knew, and kept the secret, and turned out to be exactly the right person for reasons that had nothing to do with the books and everything to do with what comes after them. I read it twice. Then I texted Ethan, your sister has written us into literary history. He replied, I know. She told me. How do you feel about it? I looked around the library, the shelves, the afternoon light, the general quiet of a place that had always felt like home. Honestly, I typed back. Like I finally understand why people love books so much. Because sometimes the story you're living is better than the one you're reading. A pause. Then, very well put. You are a literature student. Then, also I'll be there at 6. Don't forget. I smiled. I hadn't forgotten. I closed the book. I packed my bag. I walked out of the library into the autumn light, and I thought about beginnings. How you never know you're in one until you're already deep in the middle, and how the best stories are always the ones where you weren't the main character, until suddenly, quietly, irrevocably, you were. Thanks for spending time with Flustered Novel. If this story made you laugh, blush, or scream at the characters, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and come back for more chaotic romance stories. See you in the next novel. A story about finding yourself in someone else's pages, and realizing you were always supposed to be there.